You know, if there's one secret to success in the tech world, it's really about understanding this one powerful idea, the network effect. It's the magic, right? The thing that makes a product more valuable the more people use it. But, and this is big but, it also creates this massive wall for any new company trying to break in. So how do you get over it? Let's break down the solution, which venture capitalist Andrew Chen calls the cold start problem.
I mean, this is the fundamental question, isn't it? When bigger is better, how can a tiny little startup possibly challenge an established giant? It feels totally impossible, right? You're starting from absolute zero, with an empty network that offers basically no value. This is the very heart of the cold start problem. And honestly, it's the number one reason new network-based products just fail.
So what is this network effect exactly? Well, think about it like this. A social media app. If you're the only person on it, it's completely worthless. But if all your friends are on it, suddenly it becomes incredibly valuable for connecting, for entertainment, for everything. The same thing goes for online marketplaces or rideshare apps. The very force that makes these products so powerful is also what makes them so incredibly hard to launch.
So how in the world do you create value from nothing? Andrew Chen's research, and this is based on interviews with founders from places like Tinder, Airbnb, you name it, it reveals a fascinating and really counterintuitive first step. You have to start small, like really small.
Okay, so this is where everything gets turned on its head. Instead of trying to launch to this huge audience, the goal is actually to create what Shen calls an atomic network, a single, stable network that's as small as it can possibly be. We're not talking thousands of people, we're talking maybe just a few dozen. So building this tiny network, it requires a super precise strategy. First, you have to target a hyper-specific group, not just creators, but something like filmmakers on Kickstarter. Next, your product has to be incredibly simple, doing just one thing, but doing it flawlessly. Then you focus on what's called the hard side, and we'll get to that in just a second. And crucially, you have to bring this group on all at once to hit a tipping point where the network just suddenly becomes stable and can sustain itself. Okay, this next part is absolutely crucial. You have to understand the hard side of your network. In pretty much any two-sided marketplace, one group of users is just harder to attract than the other. For Uber, it was drivers. For TikTok, it's the creators. For Airbnb, it's the hosts. This scarce side, that's your biggest bottleneck. Chen argues you have to design your entire product to appeal to them first, because without them, the easy side, the riders, the viewers, the guests, they're just never going to show up. All right, so you've successfully lit that first tiny fire, that first atomic network. What's next? Well, the next phase is all about turning that little spark into a raging wildfire. It's about replication and acceleration, moving from this really painstaking manual work to something that just grows all on its own. And the mindset for this stage is all about doing things that don't scale. I mean, you might literally pay your first users to join, like how TaskRabbit gave bonuses to its first laborers. Or you might personally invite every single user. The goal here isn't profit, it's not efficiency, not yet. It's just about building that next atomic network, and then the one after that. So you start out with this really manual replication, right? Using these totally unsustainable tactics to light one fire after another. And then you hit a critical point, the growth explosion. This is that magic moment where the network effect really kicks in, making your growth organic, automatic. Your network is finally big enough to grow itself. And once that happens, this powerful growth engine with 3 reinforcing loops kicks in. First, the bigger network starts attracting new users just through simple word of mouth. People want to be where their friends are. Second, more users means more data, which lets you improve the product and keep those users around. And finally, a larger, more valuable network is just way easier to monetize. Each loop feeds the others, creating this incredible, explosive growth. But, the story isn't over, not by a long shot. After you've achieved that incredible scale and become a market leader, a whole new set of problems pops up. In a weird way, your own success becomes your next great challenge. As your network gets absolutely massive, you're pretty much guaranteed to face these 3 big issues. First, market saturation. You've simply run out of people in your target audience. Then there's community dilution, which is when the whole culture of your network starts to change, and often not for the better. And finally, there's just too much content, making it impossible for users to find what's actually relevant to them. I mean, this question just hits the nail on the head, right? It perfectly captures that feeling of community dilution. Think about what happened with Facebook. As it grew to include everyone, your friends, your kind of friends, your older relatives, the younger users who wanted a more curated space just fled to platforms like Instagram and Snapchat. The very thing that made the network so big also made it less valuable for the people who were there first.
So, in the end, the ultimate challenge is just managing all that scale. And the solutions are really complex. We're talking about developing powerful moderation tools to handle bad actors, or creating these sophisticated discovery algorithms to help people sift through all the noise and find what's meaningful to them. Your biggest advantage has become a massive operational puzzle you have to solve.
And as you're trying to manage all this, your relationship with competitors changes too. The source material gives us two really interesting ways to look at this. Andrew Chen frames it as a direct competition, where your goal is to beat the other guys and win their users. But then you have someone like Simon Sinek who suggests viewing competitors as rivals, people you can learn from to make your own service better. It's a subtle but really powerful difference in mindset.
You know, when you step back and look at this whole journey, from that first tiny little atomic network all the way to a global giant, one thing becomes crystal clear. The greatest successes aren't just about code or servers. They're about deeply understanding a small group of people and solving a very real, very human problem for them first.
So, the ultimate takeaway here is this. Massive, world-changing scale begins with an almost microscopic focus. The cold start problem isn't solved with a big bang, but with a tiny, carefully nurtured spark. Which, I think, leaves us with a question to ponder. What small, human problem is out there, just waiting for its atomic network?